I swear I will not kill anyone.
You just can't go around killing people.
Why? Come with me if you want to live.
Yeah. All right. I know it's been a little bit of time here. Yeah, it's been like 3 or 4 days since I've done this, and there's a reason. It's because I wanted to put some time in between these two movies, because, you know, like if you eat a really good meal, the next meal you have is not so good. You're only thinking of that really good meal. So it's like that. Because, I mean, it's Terminator 2 and Terminator 3. Terminator 2 is basically the perfect movie. Terminator 3 is not. And I wanted to give Terminator 3 a fair shake. And I'm glad that I did, because I really feel it would have got a much lower score if I would have watched it the very next day, which I had planned on doing. So I gave this some time. I split this up. It's just, I had to do it because, I mean, this is like comparing the Shawshank Redemption to Escape from Alcatraz. Escape from Alcatraz, one of my favorite movies. I love it. But when you compare it to Shawshank Redemption, it's just not as good. Shawshank Redemption is a masterpiece, and Terminator 2 is a masterpiece. So here it is. This is my review for Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines from 2003. Long time in between Terminator 2 and Terminator 3. That was 91 to 2003. That's like 12 years. So, I mean, the movie aged, and I'm going to do this a little differently, because usually I go basically like a play-by-play. This one, I'm just going to do a straight-up review, but I am going to keep one thing, the one thing that I have that's new that everyone seems to enjoy is the chef's kiss moments, where I give a little chef's kiss to the scenes that I found to be really cool. So, jumping right in, this is directed by Jonathan Mostow, relatively unknown director. He directed U-571 and the Kurt Russell film Breakdown, which was a Kurt Russell suspense movie. The writers here were John Brancato and Michael Ferris. This is a team of writers. This is not just two random people put together. This team of writers together wrote what I consider one of the best suspense films in history. I mean that. Michael Douglas's The Game. Just great ending to that movie. Such a good movie. They also wrote Catwoman, the Halle Berry Catwoman, which is not so great. Well, we got a sexy Halle Berry in leather, so I'll give them that. But and they also wrote Terminator Salvation, which is the sequel to this. But it gets the timeline gets really muddy in between that. So, all right, our cast here, playing John Connor, is Nick Stahl. I have a love for Nick Stahl. He has his problems and stuff like that, but the dude played that yellow bastard in Sin City, and he was such a good creeper, man. So good at it. I'm gonna turn on a light real quick because I'm having trouble. Oh my gosh, it's so bright. Watch this. Ooh, soft light. It's nice. I need that because I need it to make me look good. You know, I need all the help I can get. But anyway, Nick Stahl, just a phenomenal actor. Most recently, he was in Hunter x Hunter with Devon Sawa. And it's just, he's really is an underrated actor. And he plays a great John Connor. And I'll get into all this. Next up is Kate Brewster, played by Claire Danes. Another one I have a love for. I love Homeland. That was one of my favorite shows. And she plays such a good bipolar. As someone who is bipolar, wow, she did a fantastic job. She nailed the manic cycle. Depression is not as hard to play, is not so hard to act out as a manic cycle. A manic cycle is very hard to act out. Because people think it's just hyperactivity, and it's not. There's much more to it, and she nailed it. But I mean, in this movie though, she cries, and I said on Twitter, I don't know who has an uglier cry face, Claire Danes or Tobey Maguire. Like, they're both really bad. But still, Claire Danes, absolutely beautiful woman. And then we have the T-850, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. I say the T-850 because he is not a T-800 now. This is still Cyberdyne System Model 101, but he is a T-850. He's slightly advanced. He was powered by a power core in the first two that lasted, I think it was like 115 years, whereas the T-850 is powered by hydrogen cells, and that means he lasts a lot longer. He is also smarter, and his endoskeleton is stronger, so which is much needed. He's a different Terminator, and a lot of people didn't get that because he does have humor and he has a personality. And the Terminator in Terminator 2 had to learn to have the personality. And this one just pretty much automatically had it, and it was because he was captured by the Resistance and reprogrammed. And then they had to teach him a few things to get him to get in with John Connor. And he was already chosen in the movie. There is a big reveal where it is that he was sent back by Kate Brewster, not John Connor, because he had murdered John Connor. And the reason why the Skynet chose that one is because he could get close to John Connor, because John would always be remembering the Terminator from Terminator 2. Uncle Bob, if you will. So it's actually, the mythos in this is really deep, but it really screws with the mythos. Our antagonist here is the beautiful Kristanna Loken, who plays the TX, or the Terminatrix. This TX makes absolutely zero sense. She is liquid metal over a morphing endoskeleton, and like it's really weird. So I mean, I'm not the hugest fan of the TX, even though she's really cool. But it's like Kristanna Loken. And then for an honorable mention, Silberman's back. He has a small cameo in the film where he talks to Kate Brewster, and his cameo in the film is actually really good. He is talking about how he knows what it's like to be in a hostage situation, because Kate Brewster is basically kidnapped. I know what it's like to be in a hostage situation. You start seeing things that aren't there, crazy things that can't be explained, and he goes off on a tangent, and it is awesome. He's still a bad guy. He's still a slime ball. The Terminator busts through. He sees the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger's and Terminator, and he immediately gets up and bolts. It's like, yeah. So this was also Earl Bowen, who plays Silberman. This was his last role, his last movie role. So very cool. Now, there is some facts here that are kind of cool, kind of sad at the same time. I'm about to cough. Yuck. Edward Furlong was supposed to come back in this. He was considered. He was very close to coming back. They really wanted Edward Furlong to play John Connor again. There was one problem. He was having substance abuse issues, which became kind of a thing for Edward Furlong. He did lose out. This is why you didn't see him after he was so good in Terminator 2, and you didn't see him much. He had major substance abuse problems, as some childhood actors do. So he had his own problems. I do believe he has beaten those problems now. I'm not 100% sure. One of the last movies he was in, he was noticeably bigger. But the rumor has it is they are making several Terminator projects here. They have a movie coming in where James Cameron has taken over creative control, and they want Edward Furlong to come back. So we could get that. Would be awesome. But that would also mean messing with the timeline again, because as of right now, canon for the Terminator series is Terminator 1, Terminator 2, Terminator Dark Fate. And if you haven't seen Dark Fate, I won't spoil it for you, but the opening scene, Edward Furlong can't come back. Oh, wait, I just now spoiled it for you. Everyone hated Dark Fate. I liked it, but everyone hated it, and it's like... But they would have to screw it up. I'm okay with it. They're also working on a television series, and I think Netflix has an animated television series coming out. So, it's a big one. There's a big thing here. The original script was much darker and much different. They do have one scene from the original script in the movie. It's early in the film when John Connor is kind of recapping the story, and he's sitting on the bridge with the beer, and he drops the beer. In that scene, he's actually contemplating suicide because in the original script, John Connor is so distraught by Judgment Day not happening that he feels his life has no meaning. Now that Judgment Day didn't happen, he's not the leader of the human resistance. His life has no meaning anymore, so he has no reason to live. So he is suicidal in the original script. He's not exactly not suicidal in this movie. He does hold a gun to his head. So... But there's another one, the gas station. The gas station they stop at to refuel whenever he's throwing all the snacks in the basket, the talk to the hand scene, blah, blah, blah. That gas station was also in part 1 and part 2. Part 1, at the very end, when she stops at the gas station, when the kid takes a picture of her, that's the same gas station that's in part 2, when they stop at the gas station to stitch Sarah Connor back up and to rest. And the gas station in this is the same one. We have all our gas stations. Very cool. Actually, I think it's the gas station they stop at to eat in Terminator 2. Okay, but and then there's another deleted scene that's actually in the Terminator 3 video game and in the deleted scenes in the Blu-ray called Sergeant Candy. And it is Arnold Schwarzenegger. They have changed his voice, and he has a very kind of high-pitched Southern accent, and he says, "Hi, my name is Sergeant Candy." And they actually say, "Oh, that's who we're modeling all the Terminators from, or that's who we're modeling all the cyborgs from." Yeah, that's the one. Oh, can we change his voice? Yeah, absolutely. It's like, and there's even a cut scene in Terminator 3 when the Terminator comes around to see Kate Brewster's dad, the lieutenant, the leader of Skynet, basically, and he looks at him and says, "Sergeant Candy." So, but they had to cut it because they cut the Sergeant Candy scene. But if you just look up Sergeant Candy on YouTube, you can see the scene. It's actually quite hilarious. The TX was not always a woman. At one point she was a man, but there is a list of people who was supposed to play her. I will not be putting pictures up because there's too many damn people. Number 1 was Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel was supposed to play was considered to play the DX. Shaq, yes, Shaquille O'Neal was considered to play the TX. For women, Gwyneth Paltrow, Femke Janssen, Carrie-Anne Moss from The Matrix, and Chyna, the wrestler. They were all considered to play the TX. And John Connor, John Krasinski actually auditioned to play John Connor. We almost had a John Krasinski John Connor, which would have been okay with me. It actually came down to Shane West and Nick Stahl. Nick Stahl won out. So, it's really cool. But basically... I can start it by saying I don't really understand the hate for this film. I get that they changed the mythos and stuff, and they put a lot of humor in it. I actually liked the humor. I thought it alleviated some of the pressure. And there was one review that I said that I read that it was like, they said it was too positive to be a Terminator film, and I think that person needs to watch the movie again, because this movie is bleak. This is not positive at all. Like, there is no positivity to this movie. This is a movie where all the humans are wiped out. We have technology taking over. We have the death of Sarah Connor. We have just so much to this that it's just, and the ending is very bleak. I mean, we're talking like, I don't think it's The Mist bleak. Like, The Mist is one of my favorite endings to a movie because it's so bleak. But it's so dark, and this one is a very dark ending. But I liked it. I don't, understand the hate. I mean, basically the technology stops working, and I love that throughout this movie you see moments where Skynet's taking over, and it's small little snippets. It's someone drops a call, or the computer programming aren't working, the internet's not working, something like that. The intercoms on a drive-through stop working. It's the scene where the TX was supposed to get her clothes and everything from the woman driving the fancy car. It was actually supposed to be she meets that woman at the ATM, and the ATM isn't working. So they covered a lot of bases here, and it goes pretty deep. They also don't. This isn't everyone's like, oh, it's just a rehash of all the other ones, and it's not, because in this one, they are not. The Terminator is not sent back to kill John Connor. The Terminator is sent back to kill all his lieutenants. So they're not going to take out John Connor. They're going to take out all the people that helped him. And that's pretty cool to change the story. So then she takes out a couple of them before she goes to the pet shop and finds the blood, and she licks the blood, which is gross, but she licks it because she has a scanner on her tongue and she can tell whose DNA it is, and she finds out it's John Connor, and that switches her mission. Her mission becomes to kill John Connor. So it's very... I like that. But the thing is it doesn't feel like a Terminator movie. It feels like an early 2000s action movie. The Terminator has like a dark feel to it, a horror feel to it almost. Even Terminator 2, even though it was pure action, pure sci-fi, it had horror elements. Like you felt scared for some of the characters. These characters are in danger. And for me, I never felt that Kate Brewster and John Connor were ever really in danger. The T-800 always came, or T-850 always came and saved the day at the last moment, So, it is. I mean, we got... It just felt like an early 2000s action. So, and that has nothing to do really with anything but the director. The director and the writing. So, and that's what I say. The director did a fine job. The writing was fine. It's just, as a collaborative effort, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel dark. So, even though it was an extremely dark movie. So, that's what I thought. But first, chef's kiss is early in the film, the crane chase. This is one thing I'll say about this movie. This movie had excellent action. The crane chase was awesome, where the TX takes control of all the cop cars, all the emergency vehicles to chase John Connor, and she's driving the crane, and the Terminator's chasing her down with the motorcycle. He grabs onto the crane. She's throwing him through buildings, everything. It's just an amazing set piece. It's a lot. The CGI is a little much in it, but and then it has one of the coolest things I saw in theaters when I was however old I was. It was a very, very cool moment. I think I was 20 when this came out. Where he finally gets the TX out of the crane, and he's driving. He's got to find a way to stop her. He sees a sewer grate and hits the crane hooks it down to the pavement, and the crane just hits and falls up. It's a very cool piece. I really like it. Chef's kiss on that. And then, like I said earlier, we do find out that Sarah Connor is dead, and Linda Hamilton was actually approached to be in this movie. She turned it down after she read the script. She was full willing to be in it. It's just she read the script, the original script, and she said that she didn't want to do it because Sarah Connor died halfway through the movie, and then you don't have time to mourn her. It's like she dies, and then it's action beats right away. And instead, they just kill her off by saying she died of leukemia years ago. And they do find her grave, and her grave's filled with guns, of course, because it's Sarah Connor. And we do get a great moment. I wouldn't exactly call it a chef's kiss moment, but a moment when John finally just snaps. It's like, I don't want to do this. And the Terminator turns on him, and he's like, you're right. You aren't the John Connor I'm looking for. It's a very cool moment. But right after that, Kate gets a gun, and I give this a chef's kiss because I thought it was a cool moment where she's pointing the gun at the Terminator. She doesn't believe it's a it's a robot, a cybernetic organism, because he calls him a robot later, and he gets offended. The Terminator gets offended, but he's like, she's like pointing it, and he's like, go ahead, shoot him, see what happens. And she pulls the trigger, and he grabs the gun, and it gets him right under the chin, and he just says, ping, and she's just like, and he just spits out the bullet and says, don't do that. Don't do that. Very cool. I give it a chef's kiss moment because I thought it was a cool moment. I don't know, but maybe that's just me. And I mean, and that's part of the humor, and I like the humor of it. That was one of the biggest complaints of this movie is the humor. And it's like, I like that he got all his clothes by going to a bar, and it just happened to be ladies' night, and he has to get his clothes from a male stripper. I found that funny. That he comes in and he's scanning all the women, and he scans the bouncer at the front, and it says mismatch, and then he scans a woman and it says inappropriate. And I thought it alleviated the heaviness of the movie. The bullet, whenever they're John and the Terminator are talking, you don't remember anything, and it's just, I thought the humor was good. And there was even a part where they're driving away from the TX right after they get out of the cemetery, and they cut the top of the limo off, and they all look up, and the Terminator says, "We need a new vehicle." No shit, but I thought it was funny, and it made me laugh, and it alleviated some of the heaviness of the movie because there's a lot of action beats, and the action beats last a very long time. Usually action beats are around like 5 or 6 minutes. These are around 10 to 12. So you need to breathe after this stuff happens. I mean, you have some gory deaths. I mean, there's a scene, I would almost give it a chef's kiss, where the TX has become Kate Brewster's fiance, and she is sitting in the back of the cop car, and she shoves her fist through the driver's seat, and it goes through the driver's stomach like a chest burster, and it's very violent. And she grabs the wheel, and she's driving from the back. She's the backseat driver. I thought that was great. Like, there's moments in this movie that are good. But there is one moment that kind of made me go, oh, look at that. I didn't realize it till just now. I'm sure most of you already knew this. But when we're walking through Skynet, we're walking through, or Skynet's the program, we're walking through, like, basically Cyberdyne systems. And the lieutenant, the leader of the army, is talking to somebody, and that somebody is Chris Hardwick. Chris Hardwick is in this movie. A very chunky Chris Hardwick. He's not skinny Chris Hardwick in this. And I would say, oh my god, it's Chris Hardwick, holy crap. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I like Chris Hardwick, I like him. He was in House of a Thousand Corpses, and he does Talking Dead and all that, and he's Nerdist, whatever. Who cares? He was in House of a Thousand Corpses. So, very cool. But this is when the movie starts doing, like, the CGI becomes a little much. Even though it does get a chef's kiss, the bathroom fight totally gets a chef's kiss because it's cool. He uses a urinal as a bat. That's cool. He takes the urinal off the wall and hits her with it. I thought that was nice. And there's a moment where she's going to grab him and throw him through a bunch of walls, and she grabs his collar and then grabs his crotch, and he looks down like, okay, cool. And like that, she just throws him through the wall. There is a lot of CGI in this scene, though. And at the very end of it, he ends up getting his head kicked off. He's sitting on the edge of a platform, and she kicks his head off, and she reprograms him. So she can control other machines. But this whole thing, and when he puts his head back on, it's all CG, and it looks very CG. So the chef's kiss stops at the head kickoff, because right after that, I'm like, wow, that looks terrible. So, yeah. But the ending, when we get to the ending, I kind of like it, because the whole thing is the lieutenant, the guy who leads it all, who is the cause of Skynet taking over. The whole thing is Skynet has set a virus out that is disrupting all electronics all across the world. And they're going to have to get Skynet to the AI to go into the program and stop the virus that they don't know that Skynet actually started. And Skynet has to go in there, but that means that Skynet takes over everything. Skynet will run the world for however long they let it, and they let it take over, but they don't let them take the power back. So it's a very, but so they tell them they're so the whole thing, of course, John Connor's trying to stop it, as John Connor does, and the lieutenant's like, okay, there's one place you can go. It's your only chance of survival. You got to go to this bunker. And he's like, oh, so that's where all the processors are. He's like, it's your only chance of survival. And you're like, okay, so he knows where the motherboard is. He knows where to beat the ultimate computer. He's going to blow it up, just like his mom did. And they get there, and it leads to another chef's kiss moment where the TX finally finds him. The T-800 has been reset because he was trying to kill John Connor. John Connor said, you're going to fail your mission, and he reset himself. But he comes back. I'm back. And it leads to a chef's kiss moment, the ending where the TX finally dies, and he takes his fuel cell out, puts it in her mouth. You are terminated. Boom. That's what we get. But chef's kiss moment, and then the chef's kiss moment for me is the end, because they get to the bunker, and they're like, okay. He's looking around. He's like, why are all of these computers 30 years old? He's like, I don't get this. What is going on? And we get Kate looking to the right and just staring at something, and the camera pans over, and you see a bunker full of years worth of food. And you realize that he sent them there to survive, and the Terminator sent them there to survive. And the end of the movie is John Connor having his realization that Judgment Day is inevitable. And the Terminator tells him that early in the film, Judgment Day is inevitable. And he's like, you only postponed it. And he's just like, I was like, okay, we've got to stop it. We'll just keep postponing it. But he turns off the bombs, and you hear on the radio, people are going crazy. Is there anyone out there? We're being attacked. I'm John Connor. They're like, who's in charge? He's like, I am. And that's the end of the film, when you see the bombs come up and you see the world explode. So, or the bombs explode, and basically the world's gone. People are gone. So 3 billion human lives are eradicated. That's the end of the movie. Very bleak, very dark, and I love it. But I love bleak endings. I love dark endings. Like, to me, that's more realistic. But, so, that's it. I'll just go ahead and tell you what I give it. I actually give it a 7.5 out of 10, which is, it's not great. It's there were a lot of Bond movies that got more than that, and a lot of Planet of the Apes stuff that got more than that. But I really don't feel it's as bad as everyone likes to let on. It is kind of cheesy, but I like the humor in it. I like the story. It's just, it didn't feel like a Terminator movie, and the acting in it is phenomenal. The acting in it, well, I wouldn't say it's phenomenal, but the acting in it's very, very good. The acting is wonderful. Jonathan Mostow is a good director. It's just this movie, it wasn't stylized enough. So it has to be stylistic. But that was it. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a horrible, horrible movie, but next up, we're going to mess with the timeline a little bit. Because I do this in release order. I don't do this in chronological order. So, because it's in release order, the next thing Terminator to be released was Terminator the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the television show, seasons 1 and 2. Then it was canceled, and then Terminator Salvation came out. Which is weird. It's a weird time to cancel the Terminator show whenever a new Terminator was coming out. But, it probably could have brought more eyes to Terminator Sarah Connor Chronicles. But, see, the thing is like, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, the timeline is really odd because it takes place after Terminator 2 and before Terminator 3. But there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't make sense. Including characters that are never mentioned, or Sarah getting leukemia or anything like that. And then they also have John Connor going back to high school. That actually happens in the show. But the show to me is excellent. But it's a little weird with the timeline, and then because Salvation is the direct sequel to Terminator 3, it just takes place a few years after. It even has Kate Brewster in it and everything. So yeah, it's the Sarah Connor Chronicles. That's next. So be prepared for that. It's not. I like the show. I'll be doing season 1, and then I'll do another episode on season 2, possibly 2 episodes on season 2, because season 2 has a ton of episodes. It has like 26 episodes or something like that. So I'm gonna split those up. Season 1, I'll do that. Actually, looking forward to watching that again because I actually really did like that television series. But Terminator 3, as it stands, is the worst of the bunch so far, but that's really unfair because you had Terminator 1 and Terminator 2. And I if I remember correctly, Salvation is not great. But I know Salvation is better than Genesis because I despise Genesis. But thank you for watching. Join me next time for the Sarah Connor Chronicles. Ooh.